Good morning. On behalf of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus, welcome to this Sunday service led by our Anti-Racist Allies group. I'm Amanda Hayes, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm honored to serve as your Justice Coordinator. We begin our morning by acknowledging that this land, the hills, the woods, and rivers, is the ancestral land of the Adena, Hopewell, Wyandot, Miami, Seneca, and Cayuga peoples. We acknowledge the injustice of the theft of this land and the continuing presence, despite attempts at the annihilation of the indigenous people of this place. And we pledge ourselves to justice and repair, both with the land and its people. Let us take a moment of silence together to consider how we value and respect Indigenous people and their culture in this place we also call home. As we approach the fall equinox, also known as Mabon in some of our earth-based and pagan traditions, we recognize the value of both darkness and light in this moment of balance between the two. In our tradition, we so often use light to symbolize truth and goodness, and darkness to symbolize evil and ignorance. And so extending belonging, our September theme, toward darkness and light equally, requires that we learn to celebrate darkness, which is what this service is all about. Please rise as you are willing and able to sing the autumn verse from our opening hymn, Chant for the Seasons. The words will appear on the screen, and you can also find it in our gray hymnal, number 73. Summertime has turned the star wheel, autumn is upon us. Sweeter time has turned the star wheel, autumn is upon us. Sweet the angling sun, sweet upon the air, the smell of bloom is rising. Summertime has turned the star wheel, autumn is upon us. Glorious the trees, glorious the sight of frost leaves falling, falling. Summertime has turned the star wheel, autumn is upon us.
Good morning. I'm Tamara Parson. I am a member of the First UU Board of Trustees, and I also serve as your Black, Indigenous, and People of Color Network Coordinator, and my pronouns are she, they. Please feel free to scan the QR code on the screen to let us know you are here. Get a digital version of our order of service there. You can submit your sorrow or joy, and you can find our donation page. If you are visiting with us this morning, we welcome you. We have a first-time visitor gift for you at the greeters table. If you haven't already picked one up, or in your copy also of our welcome book. We have a few announcements this morning. Please join us today for our first annual Fall Engagement Fair. Booths are set up in Beach Hall, so please check them out after the service. You can register for classes and sign up to be a part of a group, or you can find ways to volunteer. If you are online, you can participate in our virtual Fall Engagement Fair. Just visit the firstucolumbus.org/engagement fair to see a virtual version of our booths. Also, please mark your calendars for our Fall Festival and Live Auction on Saturday, October 22nd. Our theme is Back Together for Our Future, a play on the film Back to the Future. So we will have a lot of fun, food, music, and a real DeLorean. Yes. This is an extravaganza that you will not want to miss. We will also be having a silent auction on lots of good stuff beginning on October the 8th, and a silent auction for events, lodging services, etc., beginning on October 15. So we also need your donations. And you can enter those online at firstucolumbus.org/auction. And the deadline for the donations is October 6th. I would now like to invite our children who would like to help light our chalice by bringing in the light to please meet with Jay. He's at the back of the sanctuary waving to us by the door to prepare out in the welcome hall. Our young people will return in just a few moments to bring in the light. So let us center ourselves as we listen to this morning's prelude.
Good morning. I'm Tony Scrayback. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a member of the Anti-Racist Allies group. Now it's time, I think they're ready, for the children to bring in the light. Our chalice lighting words today are adapted from I Too Am Beautiful by the Reverend Dr. Kristen Harper. The Reverend Dr. Kristen Harper is a Black minister who has served the Unitarian Church of Barnstable for 19 years. I have sat patiently as you explained your politics, your religion, your philosophy of life. I have walked with you on a journey of faith, waiting for my turn to share, to explain, to lead. Look at me. I am Black and you are white. Look at my face, my hair, my clothes. Look at my pain. Don't turn away. I am human. I have tears and fears. I have laughter and joy. Look at me and walk with me. I am beautiful. Our chalice is lit.
Thank you to our friend Jack, who brought the light for our chalice and helped us to light it. Most of our classes for children and youth start back up today. And you can see our Director of Religious Exploration, Amber Scott. She's zipping around the building this morning, trying to make sure everything goes smoothly. We do still need classroom teachers, helpers, and volunteers, especially for our 7 to 11-year-old class and our 3 to 6-year-old class. More support with coming of age and the neighboring faiths would also be greatly appreciated. You can email Amber at firstuucolumbus.org to get involved, so thank you. Today's story, it's a favorite of mine, is called The Undefeated. It's written by Alexander Kwame and illustrated by Kadir Nelson. Kwame Alexander is a Black poet, educator, publisher, and New York Times best-selling author of 36 books. This is for the unforgettable, the swift and sweet ones who hurdled history and opened a world of possible, the ones who survived America by any means necessary, and the ones who did not. This is for the undeniable, the ones who scored with chains on one hand and faith in the other. This is for the unflappable, the sophisticated ones who box adversity and tackle vision, who shine their light for the world to see and don't stop till the break of dawn. This is for the unafraid, the audacious ones who carried the red, white, and weary blues on the battlefield to save an imperfect union. The righteous marching ones who sang, "We shall not be moved because Black lives matter." This is for the unspeakable. This is for the unspeakable. And this is for the unspeakable. This is for the unlimited, unstoppable ones, the dreamers and the doers who swim across the big sea of our imagination and show us the majestic shores of the promised land. The Wilma Rudolphs, the Muhammad Alis, the Althea Gibsons, the Jesse Owenses, the Jordans and the LeBrons, the Serenas and the Cheryls, the Reese Whitleys, and the undiscovered. This is for the unbelievable, the we real cool ones. This is for the unbending, the black as the night is beautiful ones. This is for the underdogs and the uncertain, the unspoken but no longer untitled. This is for the undefeated. This is for you, and you, and you. And this is for us. The end. In this poem, Alexander Kwame celebrates the accomplishments of Black Americans in the face of oppression and adversity, and shares his love for Black life in the United States. He highlights the unspeakable trauma of slavery, the faith and fire of the civil rights movement, and the grit, passion, and perseverance of Black people from the past into the present. I now invite the congregation to remain seated, but to form a sheltering arc of love as we sing our children back to their families and out to their classes. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Eddie Freed, and I'm new to this church. In fact, Claire and I signed the book Thursday. There's my wife, Claire. And I'm very pleased to be invited to be a member of this church's anti-racist allies group. Our reading this morning is Dark and Light, Light and Dark by Jackie James. It was published in The Storm So Long, edited by Mark Morrison Reed and Jackie James. Jackie James is an African-American retired religious educator and at the UUA, former director of worship resources and former director of affirmative action. Blackmail, blacklist, black mark, Black Monday, black mood, black-hearted, black plague, black mass, black market. Good guys wear white, bad guys wear black. We fear black cats and the dark continent. But it's okay to tell a white lie. Lily white hands are coveted. It's great to be pure as the driven snow. Angels and brides wear white. Devil's food cake is chocolate. Angel's food cake is white. We shape our language, and we are shaped by it. In our culture, white is esteemed. It is heavenly, sun-like, clean, pure, immaculate, innocent, and beautiful. At the same time, black is evil, wicked, gloomy, depressing, angry, sullen. Ascribing negative and positive values to black and white enhances the institutionalization of this culture's racism. Let us acknowledge the negative connotations of whiteness. White things can be soft, vulnerable, pallid, and ashen. Light can be blinding, bleaching, enervating. Conversely, we must acknowledge that darkness has a redemptive character, that in darkness there is power and beauty. The dark nurtured and protected us. before our birth. Welcome, darkness. Don't be afraid of it or deny it. Darkness brings relief from the blinding sun, from the scorching heat, from exhausting labor. Night signals permission to rest, to be with our loved ones, to conceive new life, to search our hearts, to remember our dreams. The dark of winter is a time of hibernation. Seeds grow in the dark, fertile earth. The words black and dark don't need to be destroyed or ignored, only balanced and reclaimed in their wholeness. The words white and light don't need to be destroyed or ignored, only balanced and reclaimed in their wholeness. Imagine a world that had only light or dark. We need both, dark and light, light and dark. We welcome our Spirit of Life choir. Do we have a Spirit of Life choir? To come up and sing In the Dark of Midnight by Andy Beck.
Christmas on the way. Thank you, Spirit of Life Choir. I have been on my way to this spot for 9 years. You probably didn't know that I was coming, and now you're probably wondering, who is this guy? It's me. My name is the Reverend Jay McNeil. I am a candidate for fellowship in the Unitarian Universalist Association. Thank you. So, 9 years ago, that trail started with, I flirted with this girl who worked in the library with me. And she said, "Don't even bother. I'm going back to Ohio." You might know her at this point as also the Reverend McNeil. And I think my real title is now the other Reverend McNeil. But more about who I am, sort of at my core, is that I have always thought of myself as a good guy. I've always known there's an element of that's not totally true, right? None of us is 100% good all the time. But I had sort of a foil in my life. My brother was the bad boy, and I just had to do the opposite of whatever he did. So I was the mama's boy. I was a goody two-shoes. And all throughout my childhood, I was basically the guy that everybody's parents wanted their daughter to date. So it's been very difficult for me at moments when I am not good. I feel lost. I get very confused. So in the United States of America, being racist is equal to being bad. And so I've had this constant sort of struggle, and some of you might relate to it, right? So in the United States of America, it's impossible to be good and racist. You're sort of forced to choose whether you are racist or if you are good. And when we think of racists, I imagine the kind of people that are coming to your mind might be chanting, "You will not replace us," or "Jews will not replace us." Or some elected officials at this stage in our history may come to mind, unfortunately. But what if I do uphold systemic racism and white privilege? What if I do blindly commit microaggressions? It gets complicated, and I didn't mean to stand up here this long. Right? I'm not a very practiced preacher, thank you very much, Sue. And I want to be somebody who moves around, and so I'm forcing myself to do this. I don't want to be up there. I am one of you, and I want to be with you. But I have this sort of heroes wear white, as Eddie was saying, and villains or criminals wear black. And I have the convenient situation of wearing white all of the time. I am always good. I don't know what it's like to be in somebody else's skin, but I do wonder what it's like to wear black all the time, or another color. This is very convenient for me, right? But I think the natural position for somebody who looks like me in this country is one of blindness. Right? I think most of us in this room, I hope, have heard and understand that racism is sort of the water that we swim in. It is the air that we breathe in this country. And if you look like me, it is to your disadvantage to see it, or so we're told. Really, it's a sort of affliction that damages me. It is my to my disadvantage to not see that. It is not a win-loss sort of thing. There's not a real score. There's not a finite amount of resources that white people should be unwilling to relinquish our grip on. But in order to see this blindness, to become aware of what we don't see right before us, we have to work really, really hard because it's wired into our brains. Right? How many of you have training in education? Right? Know how the brain works, or some other field that teaches you about how the brain works, right? We are physically hardwired in our upbringing, molded to think a certain way. And we think that we're very rational, but so much is automatic. We're just sort of walking through life thinking we're making reasonable decisions, and we're not. We're programmed. So my invitation to you, I tell you all this stuff about me so that when I invite you in this moment to come be bad with me, you have a little bit to draw upon. And hopefully, you know, the other Reverend McNeil Kelly well enough to know that she wouldn't be married to a totally awful person. She's clearly the talent in the family, although you've never seen her stand on a stool, have you? Don't do it, honey, wherever you are. But we need people who can see to help people like me, especially straight, white, cis, educated men, to name that. But my invitation to be bad today is really an invitation to say, not all racists are just that category, right? We can't use the label racist just to say those people over there. The racists are me, right? I am the problem. And the only way to fix it is to begin to wake up to it. And it is a forever process. I can promise you that at age 50, having spent decades and decades now working on it, I am only more and more aware of how blind I am. And so I need other people to tell me what I don't see. And in order for me to hear them, I have to be willing to shut up, be quiet, and listen. And I tell myself that all the time. Be quiet. The invitation to be bad is more an invitation to get comfortable with discomfort. Often talked about as white fragility, right? We run away from the discomfort. We can only tolerate so much. But my invitation is to get comfortable with the discomfort so that we can stay in it for the long haul. I wrote down, before we can be good, find out how we are bad. It's part of the process. I can't be in denial and get there. And it's not a destination, it's a mix along the way. But I think that figuring out in what ways we are wrong, bad, hurtful, is the path. It's the good path. So lastly, before I go, I do want to say, because we have a tendency to do this to our BIPOC folks, Black, Indigenous, people of color, is to find them and ask them a bunch of questions, right? Is Jay crazy? Jay was off the ledge, right? He should have fallen off the chair or something. Don't do that. Let's do the work ourselves. There are lots and lots of resources out there for us. Books, audiobooks, lectures, webinars, all different kinds of folks have done research, and it is an overwhelming amount of information that's out there and available. Within our congregation, my other challenge to you is to join the Anti-Racist Allies Group, ARA. Obviously, they're going to be out there at the Fall Engagement Fair, and my other challenge to you is to sign up for one of the new Living the Pledge programs that are going to go on this year. The first one starts October 2nd, so you have to sign up by next Sunday. And in closing, well, you didn't know that I was coming for 9 years. You did prepare for me. And then my hope is that we begin to prepare for the future of the diversity that's coming to us, to be ready to change and get ready and do the hard work at this time for ourselves.
I'd invite you to remain seated for our song, Kumbaya. It's an African-American spiritual associated with powerful experiences of solidarity and unity between people of all races who gathered during the civil rights movement. It's also been sung around a campfire in darkness, and the words are asking for my Lord, whom you might call the spirit of life, the sacred, the source of beauty and truth, to kumbaya, or come by here. As we sing, imagine the darkness of a fireside or the chaos of a protest, and make internal space to welcome all the richness and beauty and truth that can come in moments of uncertainty and darkness. The words will be on the screen and also number 401 in the Gray Hymnal. I can feel the openness here. Thank you. Well, I don't know how to follow like standing on a stool, and that was awesome. So thank you, Jay. Our Spirit of Life choir sang, "In the dark of midnight, gazing at the sky, there's a longing I cannot deny, conjuring emotions from deep inside, and they're calling me home." There are deep truths about who we are, how we feel, what we fear, what we hope for, and where we belong that are just hard to talk about or even think about in broad daylight. But I'm sure you've often had the experience sitting around a fire, gazing at the stars, or just lying in bed near to sleep can give us permission to share our truths and our questions with another soul or just admit them to ourselves. We need darkness to be our true selves and even to survive. In the science fiction novel The Left Hand of Darkness, Ursula Le Guin compares a perfectly white glacier in bright sunlight with a society called Orgorein that metaphorically rejects darkness. In bright light, the glacier has no shadows. Barren and blinding, the glacier is deadly to traverse. Because without shadows, there's no way to distinguish the edge of a cliff from all the rest of the white ice. The society that rejects darkness is also deadly. At first, Orgorein's immaculate streets, free from poverty, seem efficient, orderly, and beautiful. Everyone there can fit their lives neatly into the pages of standardized forms. But when a person in Orgorein experiences misfortune that leads to poverty, or if they're found without the right form, it turns out those people are taken and imprisoned in a work camp far away from those pristine streets. Orgorein reminds me of white supremacy, which unfortunately is not confined to fictional societies. White supremacy is ingrained in our society, even our church, and it reduces the ambiguity of life into these yes, no, either or, with only one right way to do things. It creates a sense of urgency that pushes us to work more for bigger quantities without regard for our need to rest. White supremacy also looks like fear of uncertainty, fear of conflict. And white supremacy is most harmful to Black, Indigenous, and people of color, but as Jay mentioned, it harms all of us. It is an inhumane way of living with ourselves and with others. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant to affirm and promote our 7 principles, from the inherent worth and dignity of every person, the first one, to the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And together, these principles imply the need to dismantle white supremacy and work to build humane ways of living together. But yet, we struggle to apply the 7 principles in this way. I believe that the persistence of white supremacy in our community means that we need a sustained and focused response. We need to both make explicit our commitment to dismantling white supremacy, and we need to begin the work of dismantling white supremacy. And at First UU this year, we will be working on both. So, first, how do we make our commitment to dismantling white supremacy explicit? One way might be adopting the proposed 8th principle. We will have conversations about whether we as a church want to adopt the proposed 8th principle, which explicitly calls out the need for working against racism and other oppressions. Tamada and Tony will now read for us the text of the proposed eighth principle for us, and let's just sit and listen fully to the words.
We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote
journeying toward spiritual wholeness
by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community
by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions.
Thank you. Now, in addition to discussing this proposed eighth principle, we will also have lots of opportunities this year to begin the work it describes of dismantling white supremacy and building a diverse, beloved, multicultural community. Jay already talked about some of them, but I wanted to invite you next Sunday. We're going to have a short training about racial microaggressions during community hour at 10 a.m. And this training is intended for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, as well as for white people. The participants who attended this training on Juneteenth said that they found it rich and thought-provoking. It's a first step if you're not that familiar with anti-racism, but we'll also have ways to engage more deeply for those who attended the last training if they want to come again. Next Sunday, as Jay mentioned, is also the deadline to sign up for our Fall Living the Pledge in-depth anti-racism training. And if the fall dates don't work for you, we actually have spring and winter dates already set that you can check out. And for anyone who's completed Living the Pledge, Beloved Conversations, or any other in-depth anti-racism training, the next step is to put those ideas into action. You might join the Anti-Racist Allies group. You might start noticing where white supremacy shows up in your life, including at First UU, and working with others to find different ways of being together. And you can learn more about all these opportunities through Friday News, the QR code on your order of service, the button on the Sunday morning welcome page online, and also at Beach Hall for the engagement fair. As Jay described in his reflection, dismantling white supremacy is difficult and uncomfortable work, but it can also be joyful work, even for white people. This is not about shaming others or ourselves. It's not about doom and gloom. It's about loving darkness and light. It's about finding more freedom and more belonging. It's about building a beloved multicultural community and making room for all of our truths, valuing people over product, learning how to have healthy conflict, resting without fear or guilt. To be our best, truest selves, to become the community that we dream of, we need to celebrate darkness.
Our Share the Plate partner for September is UU the Vote, a national campaign of Unitarian Universalists doing voter outreach and fighting for fair elections. Here's a video from campaign manager Jason Hicks.
When we vote, when we are in community with people every day, not just election day, That's how we you the vote. That's how we lead with our values. Values that help our communities thrive. Democracy, dignity, and bodily autonomy. You the Vote is an initiative that cultivates and unleashes the moral courage of UUs to radically shift our society and politics toward the values of human dignity, democracy, and independence. When we put our values into action, learning from yesterday and leveraging our capacity for today, we build power for the long haul. As our nation grapples with threats to our democratic process, resulting in waning voter protections and weakened access to comprehensive health care and abortions, we know what's at stake. As Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities face increased violence and surveillance, we know what's at stake and commit to making good trouble. Good Trouble is joining a state action network. Good Trouble is volunteering with the Side with Love Action Center. Good Trouble is the 3 million plus values-based voter conversations we made in 2020, and we're just getting started. There's a place for you to join us at You the Vote.
So Tuesday is National Voter Registration Day. National Voter Registration Day. The first UUers will be registering voters in the coming days, helping to ensure that everyone has access to the right to vote. This assurance of access is a part of dismantling white supremacy in our country, state, and it impacts every area of social justice work. Find out how you can be involved in voter outreach and election protection this fall at the Democracy and Human Rights table at the Engagement Fair. Please use the QR code or go to our website firstuucolumbus.org, and click the Donate tab to share as you feel called and are able. Our offering will be now gratefully received, and thank you for your generosity.
It's beautiful. Good morning. I'm the Reverend Kathleen Fowler, and my pronouns are she and her, and I serve as your assistant pastoral care minister. Our caring meditation this morning is called Fall Equinox Meditation by Reverend Lori Gorhas Haban. Thanks to our newly forming First UU Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans, or CUPS chapter, we thank them for choosing this beautiful meditation this morning. Pause. Between the center, between the longest and shortest days. A gold leaf is held suspended by the delicate green needles on an evergreen tree. Equinox. The wheel of the year turns and turns again. The air cools, days shorten, the sun seems to weaken, barely clearing the horizon after rising, before beginning its descent. This is our opportunity now to pause, balanced, breathing in, breathing out, knowing this present moment. This present moment is all we're guaranteed. Like the sun moving towards the shortest day, each moment arises and is gone before we know it. This is the time to pause and consider as we enter the season of contemplation, of increasing darkness, of lying fallow, of dormancy. This is a season of letting go, of lightening burdens, of preparing for a long period of being still, going deep. Pause and consider. Binaries, dark and light, hot and cold, chaos and order, neither extreme is inherently good or bad. It's all a matter of balance, of honoring the spectrum for which binaries mark the endpoints. Today, we mark the midpoint between summer and winter solstice, a time to seek balance and be free. Blessed be and amen. So this morning, we lift up the Westerville community members who came together last evening for a night of hope, a family-run event to raise awareness for mental health. This event focused on raising awareness for mental health and working to end the stigma surrounding it. We congratulate them. Now, last Sunday, 9/11, when I held up the 21st anniversary of the terrorist attacks by the militant Islamic extremists on 9/11, I neglected to hold up those who lost their lives or were seriously injured in the crash of the American Airlines flight into the west side of the Pentagon in Arlington County, Virginia. The senseless loss of life at each site continues to astound us, and we continue to grieve. Today, we sit surrounded by these and many connections, both visible and invisible, that remind us every day that we are not alone. Peace be with us and with all beings that share this earth. I now invite our pastoral listener for today, Sharon Hammersley, to share this week's caring cards and the joys and sorrows submitted this morning.
We have 5 caring cards this morning. Happy birthday to Kathleen B., who celebrated her 90th birthday on Friday, September 16th. And we also send our caring thoughts and healing wishes to Kathleen. Kathleen fell on Sunday, September 11th, while walking on a river path near her home, and she unfortunately broke a rib. So she has been hospitalized since then, but expects to be transferred to rehab soon. She is doing well, but lower sodium levels are delaying that transfer. Please, no calls, emails, or text yet. We also send our caring thoughts and healing wishes for Carol W. Carol has been hospitalized for investigation and tests after an infection. Carol was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in July 2021. Congratulations to Denise R. and Helene R., Denise D., and Helene R., who are celebrating their 40th anniversary. Joy and gratefulness are expressed by Jacques A., who is grateful for the ways that Stuart Smith helped him distribute food to those in need while his leg was healing from a fall in February. Without this help, many people would have gone hungry. Jacques is happy to say that he is now able to pick up food and distribute it himself. Congratulations to Marion G., a familiar face in our front office, who is now a reading and spelling tutor with Learning Aid Ohio. This program provides grants for learning services to Ohio families with students from preschool to high school who have an IEP or 504 plan. We are happy for Freya Luxon, who just finished her first week of classes at Columbus State, where she plans to start her educational journey before transferring to Ohio State to major in disability studies. We encourage you to visit the caring table in Beach Hall after the service to sign caring cards, whether or not you know the people. This longtime tradition of signing cards in person is an important outreach to members and friends. Even if there are no cards to sign, there are this morning, you can stop and say hello to our volunteers. And now for the joys and sorrows you submitted this morning. Christopher C. says, my mother, Arnell C., passed away on Sunday, September 11th in Akron at age 83 after a long, slow decline. She was a member of the Akron UU Church and was responsible for my brother Matt and me being raised as Unitarian Universalists. We send our sincere sympathies to the family in this time of grief. Silas says, I start a new job tomorrow and I'm so excited. Congratulations, Silas. And Heather and Joshua S. say, we have a baby girl on the way. May we hold these joys and sorrows and all those yet unspoken gently in our hearts.
Thank you, Sharon. As I ring our temple bell, I invite you into a moment of shared silence to reflect, imagine, pray, or simply breathe. We will ring the bell a second time to continue our service.
Thank you all for pondering the beauty of darkness with us this morning. Many blessings on the autumn equinox this Thursday and all upcoming celebrations of fall. I hope to see you in Beach Hall for our fall engagement fair, and for those of you joining online, in the online version. As we sing our closing hymn, When Darkness Nears, may it remind you of your own treasured memories of darkness. The words are on the screen, and you can also find number 50 in our gray hymnal. It's not the most familiar song to us, but the words are really beautiful, so we're gonna work through it together. You may rise as you're willing and able. When darkness nears, and darkness
If you are online, I invite you to bring your chalice closer to extinguish our flame together. If you're here in person, after the postlude, you're welcome to go to Beach Hall for coffee and conversation and the engagement fair. I invite you to join me in speaking our vision statement as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of vision. As we go forth, let us heal and transform ourselves through reason and love. Thank you, Jay. Our flame is extinguished, but the light lives on in our hearts and lives.
That title is incorrect. This is Virgo, Night Sky Essays by Liz Story.